Let's play a game. It's called Fact or Myth. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a phrase or a saying, something you've probably heard before, and you're going to guess whether you think it's true, a fact, or whether you think it's false, a myth. Ready? So number one, it takes 7 years to digest swallowed gum. Is it a fact or is it a myth? That is a myth. Besides all the sweeteners and flavorings, 99% of what is in gum actually has no nutritional value to us whatsoever. But we still break it down and digest it and turn it into waste just like any other food. Number two, we only use 10% of our brains. Is it a fact or is it a myth? That is also a myth. Now, it may be true that we only use 10% or we don't use our brain's full potential, but as far as the physical makeup of our brains go, we use far more than 10%. And number three, lobsters, if left undisturbed, will never die. Is it a fact or is it a myth? It's a myth. You see, human beings grow in their lives until they hit a certain point and then we start to decay. But lobsters, on the other hand, and many other types of fish, actually never hit the point where they start to physically decay. A lobster will actually continue to get bigger and bigger until the day it dies. So you see, even though these sayings or these phrases are things we hear all the time, they're actually all myths. And myths aren't just silly stories or trivia questions about lobsters or chewing gum or brains. Myths are all around us in our culture, and some of them are a lot more serious. And I believe that the most serious myths that we have to deal with today are myths that have to do with our identity. But what the heck is identity? Our identity is the story we tell ourselves and others when someone asks, "Who are you?" And the quality of that story will inevitably dictate the quality of the life we live. And that story and the contents of that story are dictated by the voices we listen to in our lives. Now, to understand exactly what I mean by that, I want you to do a little exercise as you sit at your computer or your phone. I want you to close your eyes and I want you to go through your day in your head. I want you to think about all of the voices you hear as you go throughout your day. You slowly begin to realize that we hear millions of voices every single day. And all of these millions of voices are trying to tell us the story of who we are. And unfortunately, it's often the loudest voices that are the easiest to listen to. And the loudest voices are often the voices of the media and the magazines and the bullies and the gossipers. And these are the voices that are telling us the 4 identity myths. So let's go through and discover what these 4 myths are. Number 1, the first myth they tell us is that you are defined by what you do. The person who's in danger of believing this myth is the grade grubber or the perfectionist or the star athlete. It's the person whose worth is tied to their achievement. It's the person who lays in bed at night and says to themselves, if I can't be the best, if I can't get everything right, then I'm not sure I'm worth anything at all. The second myth says you are defined by what you look like. This is the person who always has to have the best clothes, or the prettiest hair, or the best body. It's the person who ties their worth to their physical appearance. It's that person who looks in the mirror in the morning and says, if I can't be the prettiest, if I can't be the sexiest, if I can't be the most beautiful, or the most handsome, or the most attractive, then I'm not sure I'm worth anything at all. The third myth says that you are defined by who you know. The person who's in danger of believing this myth is the people pleaser, or the popular girl, or the one who just can't stand to have anybody mad at them because they have tied their worth to the acceptance they get from relationships with others. It's the person that thinks, if I'm not the most popular, if not everyone is absolutely in love with me, then I feel totally worthless. And the fourth myth tries to tell us that you are defined by what you've done. The person who's in danger of believing this myth is the drug addict, or the girl with an eating disorder, or an unplanned pregnancy, or the guy with a very promiscuous, lustful past. This is the person who ties their worth to their past mistakes. It's the person that lays in bed at night and says, I have screwed up way too many times. There's no possible way that I could be worth anything anymore. This is what the voices of the world are trying to tell us. They're telling us that you have to be the best, you have to be the prettiest, you have to be the most popular, and if you have ever made a mistake, then you are damaged goods. This is the voice of the world, and the more we listen to it, then the worse the story we tell about our lives is going to get. But take heart, because there is good news, and that good news is that there is another voice that we can listen to.